In this issue, we continue our explanation of the King of Tulsa. Somewhere in Tulsa, ATF surrounded an offending gunman. One officer is wounded. Inside, the outlaw James is resisting stubbornly and the situation is stalemated. His acquaintance arrives on a motorbike, but not to talk him out of it. Instead, he reminds James that he doesn't have a choice. James is a gangster too. He knows that if he's exposed, it's game over. He's a dog lover, so he ends up letting his dog go, and then he sets off the bomb for his own good. Under the parasol, Jack sees a white horse that looks familiar. He wonders why the stable hands don't care about the old horse. The owner replied that not all horses could be kept in captivity. He suggests that people who go off on their own never follow the rules. Jack's driver, Thomas, thinks that in 5 years' time he will be the oldest man in the mob, but Jack is skeptical. He knows that Thomas is not a good student of the rules, but at the same time he didn't think Thomas was a bad man with a heart of gold. Bobby's shop. There's a low-rent version of a rave going on. A young man had passed out from inhaling laughing gas. Laughing gas is nitrous oxide. It's a dangerous chemical. When inhaled, it has a mild narcotic effect and causes people to laugh. However, it is harmful to the human body when inhaled over a long period of time. Jack discovered that balloons filled with laughing gas sell for $5 each. At music festivals, they even sell for $10. So Jack had an idea in mind. A bottle of laughing gas can make 350 balloons at $10 a pop, so 3 bottles would make him $10,000. He was on the verge of making a fortune, so he talks to Jimmy, the bar manager. Let's say they get 10 bottles. So he talks to Jimmy, the bar manager. That's a lot of money. Jack told Jimmy to use the excuse of making whipped cream. Under the pretext of making whipped cream, Jack told Jimmy to order a large quantity of laughing gas and store it here in a very safe place. Meanwhile, Smith, who felt threatened by Jack, was waiting for a chance to get at Jack. Jack is looking out for Thomas. He still thinks Thomas should go back to college. Thomas doesn't want to, but he feels he can't quite manage his studies. He can't understand the timetable, the syllabus, the grades. Jack answered the question, "Do you really think it matters what you study? What matters is that you've spent the last 4 years proving to employers that you've listened and stuck to your guns and been an okay screw. And do as much as you can with the shit that's been handed down to you." That's Jack's definition of university. And of course the obligatory beer and sex classes. Today is the date of Jack's road test. He's obviously an experienced driver. This is a task he's well versed in. Unless someone tries to surprise him on this day. That's right. Smith did the assassination for his own safety and that of his family. But it ended in failure because he was rusty. He was chased through the streets by an old man who was almost 80 years old. And he ran like hell. This was a common occurrence for Jack, but it scared the hell out of the road test instructor. Smith was a bad assassin, but he's a good runner and manages to get away. Jack also used the instructor's blood to write down the number of the car. As a gangster, Jack didn't want the police to notice him, so he threatened the instructor to keep his mouth shut. Jack was lying at the police station. He lied that the assassination wasn't about him. It must have been because the instructor had failed a lot of road tests, fearing he'd find evidence. Smith burned the car, but his rusty skills left him in the dark. Anna from the ATF said she didn't care about Jack, but she was the first one to come to the rescue after the accident. Later, Jack invited Anna to dinner. Both of them were doing dangerous work. This proves that both of them are probably crazy people with a taste for excitement. We've talked before about why Jack came to Tulsa. Now it's Anna's turn. She was a good customs officer. She'd been through the turmoil of 9/11, but what really broke her was the Captain Sully incident that followed. So Anna was deemed unreliable because she broke down and failed in her duties. So she was exiled to Tulsa. You could say she was in a similar position to Jack. After a good chat and a few drinks, the two of them then went back to the hotel bed. Although she says there can't be another time, but she clearly couldn't pull her leg. The assassinated Jack first contacted his old friend Zet. He wanted to make sure it wasn't the old man's sons, but Zet repeatedly said they hadn't done it. Whichever way he looked at it, they wouldn't have killed Jack. After all, Jack was making a lot of money. That was a good point, and he eliminated one threat. However, during the investigation it became clear the man who was present at the previous bombing. It was Char, the leader of the motorbike gang, the Crushers. This man had also been in prison for a few years. Once he was released, he went back to his old ways. James was his former cellmate. Now he's dead, so he thought he should start with the core of the shattered stones to find the killer. Jack came to visit the coach under false pretenses. In fact, he slipped the coach $10,000 to find out where the car was by its license plate number. In the spirit of responsibility, Jack wants to dismiss Thomas. After all, Jack had just suffered an assassination attempt. So Thomas, the driver, and his family could have been accidentally killed. But Thomas said he was an adult. He had the right to make choices. So he decided to stay. Jack couldn't say anything else. Jack then said that to be on the safe side, you'll have to get another car, and it'll be free. After all, it's not a very good car, and it's got to be aftermarket. During the investigation, Anna had adopted a stray dog from the crime scene. Jack's side of the road soon found the car. Smith had closed the door because he was rusty. He forgot that fires burn better with wind, so he left some evidence behind. So by searching the internet, they soon found the ranch where Smith was. Jack pretends to be a private detective and tries to get through to the owner of the ranch, but he's soon identified as such. But the point is, the owner made sure that the employees were nice during the workday. As for what the employees do after hours, that's out of her hands. So she persuaded Jack to leave. The sensible Jack was more comfortable with this response. Thomas wanted to be more of a mean gangster. This worried his dad, and Jack became the night watchman. He waited until the end, when he followed the suspect to his home. Because of the bottom line, Jack decided to wait until the house was empty. He would go back to get a statement. Smith, who had also been exiled here, had become a cowardly man. So when he was confronted with the neighbor's dog taking a dump, he didn't even have the courage to ask for a statement, which was very humiliating. Jack waited for the others to leave. He found Smith with a gun, and Smith exclaims, "I knew this day would come. You tried to kill him yesterday. Isn't that karma?" Jack thought he was one of Zeke's men. Smith thought Jack was one of Zeke's men. So it was a misunderstanding. But how can you not get revenge for an assassination? To stay alive, Smith tells a big story. He said that Jack's gangster brother Peter had put him away for 25 years because he was afraid Jack would rat on him in prison and didn't want him to overturn the case. Smith also confesses that he tried to save Jack but failed because he was afraid of the repercussions. That's why he ran away and came to this shithole. Knowing the truth, Jack changed his mind. So he keeps Smith alive and lets him work for him. And his weekly contribution starts at $300. Mrs. Smith, who had just arrived home, was shocked by this. Fitness is essential for a gangster, and had a unique way of working out. A passerby noticed that the old man didn't know much about fitness, so he tries to pretend he knows what he's doing, and he gets mocked by Jack. Jack says, "If you can take a punch from me and not pass out, I'll do it your way. I'll even donate to your favorite welfare organization." This scared the guy into silence. While riding in the car, Jack found out that Thomas was trying to save money. He'd put a meter in the car to save money. The mob has a reputation to uphold. After that, Jack threw the thing away. It wasn't long before Jack gathered the crowd to sell laughing gas. The festival was very busy that night, and they got off to a good start. But suddenly they found themselves in someone else's territory, and they were warned of their intrusion. Maybe these two were a bit of a wimp, so the warnings were of little use. The sudden arrival of the threat put Smith and his wife at odds. She is also worried about how many secrets her husband still has. This makes Smith very frustrated and embarrassed. Jack's plan was a great success. 10 bottles were sold out in no time. Thomas also exclaims that this is the way to make a fortune because Thomas liked Jack's ring. Jack simply gave it to him. This added to Thomas's identity as a gangster. On the other hand, the two mobsters told Char, the leader of the Crushers, about the situation. Char was not happy. He said, "This is like letting people in to take our money without doing anything. And you didn't even say a word." The woman on the sidelines thought it was the two men who needed to be punished for their cowardice. The next day, Smith had gone to the trouble of stealing a bronze statue to pay for his help, but Smith couldn't get any money for it. There was nothing Jack could do about it, so Jack told him to give it back and reminded him that he had to pay cash for his help, although he knew he was having trouble getting a job again after 20 years. But it had to be overcome. At Thomas's family dinner table, Thomas was confronted with the gift of a ring. His father poured cold water on him. He said that Thomas was a gangster. He also said there were only two kinds of people who wore these fake rings, either gangsters or English aristocrats. Since his son couldn't suddenly become an aristocrat, then it had to be a gangster. So they had an irreconcilable conflict. Jack misses his old man and contacts his ex-wife Taylor. Predictably, A sudden contact from someone who had been gone for 25 years was bound to be met with cynicism, and Taylor was less likely to help him persuade his daughter Lily. In other news, Jack's brother George was dying. Jack wanted to go and check on him. At night, the Crushers called in reinforcements. They beat the shit out of Thomas and the others, and took away the night's earnings and the laughing gas. Smith watched the neighbor's dog shit on his lawn. He was lost in thought as they contemplated moving out of danger from Jack. Jack, on his side, immediately learned of the Crushers' retaliation. He decided to take his boys and take the place back. He even talks about Sun Tzu's art of war to build up his army. Jack informed Smith. Thomas, on the other hand, was injured. The worried father scolded, "You're 25 years old. When are you going to let us see the return on our investment in you?" That was an overstatement. So this made Thomas very angry. That evening, the crowd was about to leave for the scene. Thomas's dad came along, and since he couldn't stop his son, "I'll join you then," and to ease the father-son bond, considering the more fighters the better, Jack agreed. According to the investigation, there were 12 of them in the yard, and there were only 8 of them. While everyone was waiting for Jack's advanced tactics, Jack said that in the art of war, Sun Tzu said, "Every man must eventually become a man of honor." So Jack marches into the festival with his boys and kills them. And Anna was looking for a new boyfriend to replace her in the midst of a fling. Soon the battle is over. The relationship between father and son is eased. Jack makes it right. He gives Smith a bonus for his efforts. Then Jack gets a video animation from Tyler. Their brother George was dying. So Jack talks about some childhood memories to put his brother to rest. Seeing his brother's death, he naturally thought of himself. Finally, he said we'd meet again later. Smith's morale was boosted after a good fight, but on his way home, he was once again disgusted by his neighbor's shit. This time, inspired by the team and the force, Smith's courage was so high, so he can't take it anymore and beats the shit out of his neighbor. It was very enjoyable. In the end, Smith chooses to face the challenge rather than move away. That's all from King of Tulsa episodes 3 to 4. If you like them, please like and follow them. We'll see you next time.